this will all be recorded. So if you have to go and if other people get on and we are still rolling, you're going to have the recording to refer back to. So you don't have to worry about staying on if you can't past 8 p.m. But I'm ready to roll, and I will stay on as long as people are on and have questions for me. All right, so I want to first share my screen. I'm going to be showing you a presentation through my screen. So I'm going to share my screen with you. If you can just indicate that you can see it in the chat, that would be great. Let me just make sure I can see the chat here. Okay, perfect. I see the chat box. You don't see the chat box, do you? Or you do? Or the toolbar, is this covering your view at all? I don't know if that's just on my screen. Okay, so I'm gonna roll. I'm gonna make this shape. Okay, perfect. Okay, all right, so let's just jump in. So obviously this webinar is all about event planning as a career. So my intention is really to just provide people who are interested in pursuing this as a career, no matter where you are, to get the basic information of what it might be like, and then ask me any questions about anything that you wonder that you would be afraid to ask somebody else, because I'm here to impart my knowledge and my expertise to you. So any question, whether it's about what we talked about tonight, or if you just have a curiosity with regard to the profession, anytime, just ask me your question. If you have questions after tonight that come up, or you think of something afterwards, or if I don't get to a question that you ask, I am hosting a live Q&A next Thursday on our Facebook page, and that's wedding planner classes. It'll be the exact same time, Thursday night at 7 o'clock. It really is a Q&A that I schedule for people who are interested in our training programs, but I answer all sorts of questions about wedding planning in general. So if you have any questions, there's an opportunity to jump back on with me next week, or you can submit a question on that event page and I will answer it during the Q&A, and then you'll be able to watch it recorded. So just a heads up on that. All right, so let's get started. Just to introduce myself and give you a little bit of background about me, my name is Taia Younis. I'm the owner and master event planner at Inspired Occasions Weddings and Events, and I am in the Capital District. Sharon, where are you from? Can you type it in the chat? I'm just curious what market. Okay, all right, perfect. I used to live in North Carolina, actually. All right, awesome. I'm so glad we have someone from a different region. Okay, so I'm up in the Capital District of New York, just a little bit of north of New York City. My company services this Capital District as well as the lower Adirondacks, Vermont, Massachusetts. We really go all over the place in this area. I've been in business for about 10 years, a little over 10 years. We're going into our 11th season. And I started from being just an individual event planner to now running this event planning company. And I employ 3 different coordinators who coordinate events on their own. I have a staff of 5 coordination assistants, and then we always have interns coming in and out. So my business has really grown dramatically over the last decade. And I went from doing it part-time as a side gig when I got started to now this is my full-time gig. I still work out of my home. This is my home office, and that's because I'm a mom of 2 kids. And when I started my business, they were little kids. Now they're teenagers. But it's always been very important to me that I have the flexibility to be a mom and also do work. So as far as my kids know, they've always had a stay-at-home mom because I've always been here when they got off the bus. I might be in my office doing some work, or I might have a conference call at night, but I've always had the flexibility to take care of them and their needs while I have them in the house, and yet still have my professional career. I don't know that I will ever really want to work outside of the office. I think, you know, I may have to, Someday, if the business grows further, it's a little hard to accommodate in my home. But I love being able to, like, you know, pad down to my office in my pajamas and do work or, you know, take a call. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. I got started teaching wedding planning to people who are looking to join this profession a couple of years ago. And that's because since I got started, I am contacted on a regular basis by people who want to do what I do and they have no idea how to get started. And that's one of the big problems with event planning as a profession, is that it has a lot of appeal for people, it has a lot of flexibility in it. So a lot of people are interested in doing it, but there's not a lot of opportunity to learn and get started. You're not going to go online and do a search for jobs and see an entry-level wedding planner job. You're not going to open a college catalog and see a major in wedding planning. And yet there are people who want to learn. So once I had really perfected my systems and my way of doing things, I wanted to actually help people learn how to do this. I've been taking interns and giving them on-the-job training for all those years, but I can only take one or two at a time. And a lot more people than that were contacting me. So I decided I would find a way to train people to do what I do. And the best forum to do that right now is online. So a little over a year ago, I launched weddingplannerclasses.com and put all of my training up there. It's video online training, and it's meant to teach the skills of wedding planning. Because it's everything that I wish that someone had taught me when I got started. I had to learn as I went or get mentored from other people. But this is an actual skill-based training course. So that's why I decided to go ahead and start teaching people. I really needed to fulfill a need that people were coming to me with, and that was my solution. Shortly after I launched that, I began to partner with a community college in our area who wanted to offer this as a certificate course to people who are looking in their catalogs for this kind of training and they're not finding it. And so I have started to partner with colleges. I'm working with Hudson Valley Community College right now. I'm going into Schenectady Community College and Monroe Community College coming in the summer and the fall, so that students everywhere have access to this skill-based training from the comfort of their own home, and everybody can kind of start doing this work and doing it with a level of confidence and real information from someone who does the work. So one of the questions I get all the time is, why train my competition? And it's actually a really irritating question because I think it's super negative and it's not how I think about the industry or people, fellow wedding planners. I really don't think of them as adversaries. I think that we honestly all need each other. My main goal in training people to do what I do is to fill the market with wedding planners who are doing really good work. And this is why. So in my area, there's 4,500 weddings a year. And if you were to look on Wedding Wire at any given time, you're going to see and select wedding planners, you're going to see about 60 to 65 vendors. And I've gone through them pretty carefully. There's 5 to 10, somewhere in that range, between 5 and 10, that are really consistently working full-time and doing this professionally all the time. So if you've got 7, 8 planners for 4,500 weddings, there's plenty of business to go around. It's not an issue of competition and trying to beat each other. I think that wedding planners have the opposite problem, and event planners as a whole. And that is, when people plan an event and you were to ask them, what are the critical vendors that they'll hire to help them with that event? You're going to hear a few different things. You'll hear a photographer, you'll hear band or DJ, you'll hear catering. Those are the things you're going to hear. You're not generally going to hear planning and coordination. And that's because not enough people have had the experience of working with them. And the more that we work And the more that we go out there and we do really good work and people have great experiences with us, the more that we elevate the profession as a whole. And it will start to be one of those necessities. Videography used to be that way. I would always have to tell couples, you know, I would really have to convince them to spend money on videography. I don't have to do that as much anymore. And that's because there are a lot of videographers that have gotten out in the market, they're doing incredible work, and they are really elevating that as something that people have to have. So I want to make sure that planners that are coming out of my area or my training are doing great work. And they are going into events and vendors are walking away saying, I love working with this planner because they make my life easier. And the guests at that event are saying, oh my gosh, the next time I'm doing this, I'm going to hire one because they were invaluable. And that's what we need to do in order to grow the industry and make all of this a little more the norm. And I think that will also open up more opportunities. Maybe someday there will be a major in wedding and event planning. I don't know. But until we actually go out there and prove what we do and the value of what we do, that is going to be a challenge for planners. So that's why I want to train as many people to do it, and I want to train them to do it my way because I think it's a really great system and a really good recipe for having a successful career and really making a great reputation for yourself as a professional. So that's why I'm training competition. So let's jump into this and talk a little bit about how you get there. What's the journey going to be like? So people come into wedding and event planning for lots of different reasons. Everybody who registered for this webinar probably has a different reason for doing it. Whether it's you're a student and you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out what you want to do for a career, or if you're stuck in something that isn't quite a right fit and you want to make a shift into something that makes you happier. Everybody has a different reason, and you all have different resources available to you and circumstances. So everybody's path to getting to where I am is going to be very different. My path was certainly not a straight line. I have been, I graduated from college a very, very long time ago, but I did not get a degree in business. I did not get a degree in hospitality. I actually graduated with a social work degree because I wanted to be a helper. I didn't know that I could be an event planner, and I probably couldn't have been at the time because I graduated from high school in 1993, so I'm dating myself. But there was no internet. There were no cell phones. The wedding industry was not what it is now. The events industry was not what it is now. People found vendors in the yellow pages. I mean, there really wasn't the tools that we all need to do our job now. But I did know that I loved to plan things. I loved to plan and organize. I always had big ideas. When classmates of mine in junior high were having makeout parties in the basement, I wanted to have like upscale dinner parties with boys wearing suits and girls wearing cocktail dresses. So I always had a propensity for planning things and trying to make big ideas come to life. I just didn't know I could make a career out of it. So I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree in social work with the intention of being a marriage and family therapist. And that's what I did. And I was working right out of college, newly married, as a psychiatric social worker. I worked as a therapist in a psychiatric hospital. And I would come home every day and say to my husband, someday I'm going to work with happy people. And I did find the work rewarding, but I found it very draining, and there wasn't a whole lot of joy in what I was doing. And I knew then that I could not work decades doing what I was doing. I wanted to work with happy people. But again, I did not know how that was going to happen. But life has a weird way of just kind of putting you where you're supposed to be. So in that period of time, my husband and I were in a terrible, terrible car accident, like really, really bad. And my husband was very, very badly injured. So we had to literally pick up and move. And this is when we were living in North Carolina at the time. We had to move back up to New York State. I moved back in with my parents while my husband was in a rehabilitation center recovering from his injuries. And I had to give up my job doing social work. And when he was recovered and it was time for me to really get back into the workforce, I applied for a couple different kinds of jobs. I applied for social work jobs and I applied for administrative jobs because that's what I had always done when I was in college. I worked as an administrative assistant to kind of make money. And I ended up landing first a job here in Albany as an executive assistant for the executive vice president of life insurance for American Express. And I got that job just thinking, okay, it's a stepping stone and I'll get back into social work at some point. And when I started doing the work, I realized that I had stumbled upon my dream. And that's because 50% of my job was to do event planning. So I was doing themed galas. I was doing launch parties. I was doing multi-day sales seminars. I was doing leadership retreats and travel concierge kind of work. And what I realized is when I was doing these things, I never felt like I was working. I wasn't looking at the clock. I was working on my own time. I was working overtime. I was staying late. I was coming in early because I was really passionate about what I was doing. And it didn't feel hard. It just felt like magic. It just felt like I found that combination of work ethic, which I always had, and that personality that I've always had of having big ideas and making that happen. So I used that really to gain all of the skill and all of the knowledge I need to do what I do now. I was networking with caterers and with rental companies and hotels and restaurants and all the people that I work with now. I was just working with them on the corporate side. But I had two really little kids at the time, and it was just inconceivable to me that I was going to start a business. So instead of jumping in, I ended up just letting people hire me on the side. So I did graduation parties, I did anniversary gatherings, I worked for a couple of corporate people and did some concierge travel stuff for them. People knew that this is what I really wanted to do. So when they had an event, they would hire me and I would make a little extra money, and I got a lot of experience that way. And then 2008 came and someone said to me, and this is my now sister-in-law, she said, we need to get married. We need to get married quickly. My grandmother's very, very ill and we need to get married before she passes away. And they were both very high-powered state lobbyists. We have money, but we don't have any time. And if we hand you this money, will you plan it for us? We know that this is what you want to do. Are you willing to do it? So as terrified as I was also so excited. And of course, I took the bull by the horn and I said yes. And I made it my mission to do the very best job that I could, even though this wedding thing was new to me. By the time they walked down the aisle, I had established my business. I had made contact with a wedding planner in the New Jersey area, took a training course from her, a weekend intensive training course, was having her mentor me so that I had a resource. And at that wedding, I was able to book 2 weddings, and the rest is history. Now, when I first started, I thought, oh, I'm going to do, 4 of these a year. It's going to be for fun, and I'm just going to make travel money. I wanted to have a vacation fund. And I underestimated how ambitious I was. And I also underestimated what happens when you start doing what you love, and then you still have to go to work doing something you don't love as much. And at the time, I was no longer with American Express. I had taken on a different administrative opportunity that was part-time, so I could be home with my kids in the afternoon. And I liked my job. I liked the people there, but it didn't light me up. I couldn't wait to work on my clients. So eventually, I went full-time, and I'm still full-time, and that is what I do. So that's my journey. And I tell you that not because I want to talk about myself, but I want people to understand that it is a windy road. And just because you start off in one direction doesn't mean you can't change course and do something different. I had no idea at the time I was picking my profession that this is what I would end up doing. So whether you are a student and you are just starting out and you are just exploring, is this right for you? You're in the right place. If you are someone who is in a job and if that's just not quite right and you're looking for something that really lights you up, you're in the right place. I'm talking to both groups of people, wherever you come from. So you have to figure out what your journey is going to be to your success. And that's as individual as you. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into kind of like what are the next steps that you need to do. But let's kind of back up and talk a little bit about the actual profession and what you can expect to be doing if you're a professional event planner. So I always like to start with a definition, and I want to define what it is we're talking about. And I do talk a lot about weddings because it is 90% of what our company does. It is what I specialize in. It is what I do my training in because it is a specialized type of event. It is also where a lot of the money in events is being spent. So most event planners, if they want to work for themselves, are going to want to be able to do weddings because those are the clients that are usually spending money on events. So what is an event planner? Event planning is the process of managing a project, and that project is an event. And that could be a meeting, a convention, a trade show, a ceremony, a party, a wedding. It can really be anything. So the key is you are a project manager. I've got someone else signing on here, so let's just see here. Okay, Claire, are you in mute?
I'm not sure.
Oh, no, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you on mute and I'm just gonna keep rolling here.
Okay.
If you want to chime in at any point, just type in the chat. Do you see the little chat button?
Yes.
Okay, all right, put you on mute. All right, so basically event planning is a project management position. The project is an event. And if you're a wedding planner, the project is a wedding. So what are the things that you can expect to be doing if you are doing the job as a professional event planner? One is budgeting. That's a big part of it. You're going to be responsible for figuring out what's being spent and how it's being spent and keeping track of that. Establishing timelines, and that can be a timeline for the actual event. It might also be the timeline for the actual planning process. Selecting and contracting vendors. So generally when you are doing event planning, you are the one that's responsible for procuring the vendors, making contact with them, reviewing contracts, and keeping track of their payments. So being that frontline person with vendors is really a big part of the job. Making food and beverage and entertainment arrangements. Developing a theme or design vision for the event, whatever it may be. Arranging for activities, speakers, and equipment. Developing contingency plans. So as a planner, you're going to be responsible for anticipating the things that could go wrong. That could be a rain plan or a backup location, any kinds of things that you may need to address in the moment. That's going to be your responsibility to come up with in advance. And then, of course, coordinating the execution of all the event plans. So once it's planned, most event planners are actually doing the coordinating as well and just making sure that all of those things that are planned come together. So I want to break down the role of an event planner into three major categories. There are three parts of the job, and how much you do of each one depends on the kind of work you're doing, the event that you're doing, and the scope of the services that the person has hired you for. So the first item is the role of consultant. And obviously this is where you are going to be the expert and you're imparting to the people who have hired you advice and guidance based on your knowledge of events. And that could be specific to weddings. It could be just general events. So this would be telephone calls, emails, answering questions, or face-to-face consultations where you are guiding your clients through the process of planning their events. You are going to give them advice Sometimes that's a little different than what they're thinking, but you're the professional. So being a consultant isn't just about being their friend, it's about being the professional and really giving them a reality check sometimes when it comes to planning and being very clear about what needs to happen to get the project done, because again, you're a project manager. So that kind of speaks to the education piece as well. A lot of times you're going to be educating clients because they are not knowledgeable about events and the events industry. They are going to need you to tell them what they can expect. So that may be, for example, you could be sitting down with a client and they could say, you know, I want to hire a band for my wedding. We've budgeted $500 for the band. It would be my job as the planner to educate them that the going rate for bands in this area is anywhere between $4,000 and $15,000. So $500 isn't going to cut it. So a lot of times you have to educate your clients about the process and about the market. And then finally, as a consultant, you're going to be expected to provide referrals. So they're going to be looking for you to refer them to other vendors that are going to help them bring their wedding or their event vision to life. And it's not just a matter of knowing people, it's knowing who is the right one for them. So if you know that there's this really great photographer, but they're way out of the budget, you're not going to refer that. They want you to refer someone that's going to work for them. So you need to have a wide base of knowledge to know all the different photographers, maybe not all of them, but a wide range of photographers in your area so that you can make referrals. That will be part of your responsibility. The next major role is that of planner. Obviously, we call it an event planner or wedding planner. Planning is part of it. But when I talk about the event or the planning role, this is really about the pre-work. So the planner and the planning is the prior to the event work that gets done. So this is when you're doing the budgeting, the design, you're bringing the vendors on, you're planning all of the details, you're putting together, you know, the planning timeline for the event and making sure that all of that stuff happens. So this is the planning process. Now, not everybody does planning. Some people just do coordinating. So that's your third role, coordination. And coordination is the other end of it. So once all the plans are made, the coordinator is the person who's bringing it all together and actually executing the plan. So that would be the event day timeline and managing that, creating it, and then overseeing to make sure everybody's running on time. This is vendor management on site. So you've brought all these vendors on as a planner, but as a coordinator, you need to make sure that you are really overseeing the vendor process. And that includes making sure they have what they need, making sure they're doing what they were hired to do, making sure someone's communicating to them what's happening and what's coming next. Execute and oversee all of the event details, and that can run the gamut depending on what the event is. It could be, you know, setting up seating cards. It can be, you know, sending people down the aisle. That's all part of executing and overseeing the details of the day, the events and the physical details, the design, all of it. Guest management is a big part of it. You're not directly in service for guests, but you as an event planner will interface with guests, so you need to be prepared that you may have to communicate with guests, direct guests, answer questions, all that kind of stuff. And then of course, client service. You're taking care of your clients, and that can be a wide range of people. It can be a couple for a wedding. It can be, you know, an officer from a corporation. It can be a wedding couple's family. Your job really is to make sure that whoever has hired you is getting the information that they need and keeping apprised of what's happening, and that they are well taken care of. If they have questions, that they are using you as a resource. So those are the three major roles you can expect to fulfill as a planner: a consultant, a planner, and a coordinator. All right, before I move on, are there any questions? Sharon, you're the only one on at the moment. Do you have any questions about thus far that I can answer for you before I move on? Okay, great. All right, so I want to get into kind of the typical services of what an event planner might offer. And everybody differs, and every event planner is going to make a choice based on what it is they really want to do, what they think will fit with the time that they have. So let's just jump in and talk about what you can see. Obviously, weddings, and I'm talking a lot about weddings, but that's a big part of it. Like I said, this is a huge industry. People are spending money on weddings. My business started the year of the recession, 2008, and it was before it crashed. And somehow I have managed to grow my business over time. And that's because people are still getting married and they're still spending a considerable amount of money on weddings. When I first started, I was working with couples who were maybe spending $15,000 on their wedding, and now I'm working with people who are spending $120,000, $150,000 on their wedding. So there is money there. There are elaborate weddings that need to get planned, and there are clients that really need help. And so weddings should be in the wheelhouse of a professional event planner, just because it's a big opportunity to do great work and work in the events industry. So the three different ways, most common ways that you might work on a wedding would be day of coordination. That's the first one. And this is a newer form of wedding planning coordination that has become super popular now that there are so many great resources online for couples who are planning their wedding. They're wanting to do all of their planning, but ultimately, as the date gets closer, they want to know that someone else is taking care of it and making sure that all that they have planned actually comes together that the way they've planned. So we call that day of coordination. And I get into this in my training, exactly how to do it. And the fact that it's kind of a misnomer that it's called day of coordination, because there's a lot more involved than just on the wedding day. You don't just show up and coordinate the wedding day. There's some pre-work to be done. But this is generally what people call the product. And it's gotten very popular. So most planners are offering some form of this. And it is definitely something that we do. And it is the most of what we do. We also do full service planning and design, which is the other end of the spectrum, but we do a lot of day of coordination as well. So full service planning and design is really what people think of. When they think of a wedding planner, they think of J-Lo and the movie, and that's that hand-holding, go to every meeting, drive the process kind of experience. And that is full service planning and design. Not everybody does it. It is a very, what should I say? It's time intensive. And it is definitely the luxury end of service. You're really giving people a lot of service. For me, I find it super satisfying because it is when I do full service planning for people that I get to know them really well. We probably start working together somewhere between 6 months to 18 months before their wedding. We meet on a monthly basis. We're on the phone all the time. I really get to know them because I'm doing the design. I really get to know their preferences and their quirks and all the things that are unique about them, which helps me to really plan a spectacular wedding, not because it's fancy or beautiful, but because it's really them, because I know them. And for me, as being a helper, I really enjoy the relationship with my clients the most. So full service planning is really where I get most of my satisfaction. But I like doing day of coordination too, but full service planning is just really why I got into doing what I'm doing. I really wanted to work in that way, in a more intensive way. And then partial planning is some sort of compromise between the two, something between a day of coordination and a full service planning. And lots of planners structure that in a different way, but it's some kind of happy medium, you know, because people always like to have a middle choice. Just makes it easy. So I thought it would be fun to share some images of weddings, because I think what is really unique about weddings in general when it comes to events is that they are all so different. Because couples are so different, every time you do a wedding, you're starting with a new project. So it always makes it fun and exciting and interesting. So these are a couple of the weddings that we did last year that were definitely on the more fancy side. And I love those. I love elegant ballroom weddings, but I also love my more laid back clients who like to have something that's a little homier and a little more, I don't want to say casual, but a little less buttoned up. So we do a lot of barn weddings. This one right here is a brewery wedding, and this is a winery wedding. So that's what's fun about weddings is they're in all different places and you're meeting all different couples that have different priorities, and you have the opportunity to be really creative and help kind of bring their personalities out in an event. It's kind of like art, and your canvas is this event. And then this just shows you kind of the difference in simplicity and over the top. So this is a Chinese couple that I worked with a couple years ago. The entire ceremony was in Chinese. I didn't understand a word of it, but they were a lovely couple. It was a great learning experience for me. They only had 35 people at their wedding, so we just did one long table, and they don't do any dancing or any music, so it's just a really elegant dinner party, and everybody left like an hour early and went to bed, which was awesome for us because we got home early, but I had never ever seen that before. But it's just, that's what's fun about this profession is you get to learn something new all the time. Every time you get a different client, you have an opportunity to do something that you've never done before because everybody's so unique. And then this other picture is just the other end of the spectrum. This was a very kind of luxury wedding at a high-end resort right on the lake up in Lake George. And they went crazy, crazy, crazy with flowers. So here's crazy with flowers. Here's kind of simplistic with flowers. And I love both. I love both. All right, so that's weddings. In addition to weddings, you may be called upon or you may be inclined to take on corporate and nonprofit types of events. And if you are in a place where there is a definite off season, which we definitely do for weddings. So our off season up here in the Northeast is November to April. Not a lot of people get married November to April. We have a huge snowstorm coming this weekend, and that's one of the reasons why people don't want to get married in January, because it would throw a huge wrench in someone's wedding plan if they got married this Saturday. And I'm sure someone is getting married this Saturday, but anyway, so corporate and nonprofit events are a really great opportunity to work with clients in the off season. They are usually spending money similar to weddings because they are from an organization and it's not a private person. They're usually larger scale events. So you have the opportunity to make contact with a lot of different people, not just vendors, but people who attend corporate events, nonprofit fundraisers. They tend to be high-powered business people and influencers in the area. So if you do a really good job, it's an opportunity to book more jobs. They also tend to be a little less time intensive because you're not dealing with the ceremony aspect that you do with weddings. And because they take place all year round, it really does just help kind of even out your schedule. The nice thing about corporate and nonprofit clients as well is they are likely to be repeat clients. Whereas if everything goes well with a wedding couple, you won't need to plan another wedding for them unless they're going to renew their vows or have a baby shower or something like that. So corporate and nonprofit is a good opportunity to make a really good relationship with a company and do repeat work for them. So this is just a picture of a fundraiser. We've done a nonprofit fundraiser for the Girl Scouts up here every year, and it is one of these really cool culinary competitions where chefs and mixologists come together and they make recipes using the Girl Scout cookie, and people buy tickets and they come and taste and they vote, and it's a really fun event, and it's always in March when it's cold and nasty, and so it keeps us busy in the wintertime dealing with this very large scale event. We have a great relationship with them. When they do other smaller events, banquet type stuff, they'll call on us. We've become kind of their resident event planners. So it's really important to kind of dabble in this if you want to keep busy all year round and if you want to keep your repertoire wide. But you don't have to. If this doesn't light you up, don't do it. But I find it fun to just kind of mix things up every once in a while and do some different things. Just actually booked a new corporate client for this fall, and it's going to be a it's a medical practice, and they have a huge appreciation party for all their referring physicians, and it is a masquerade type party, and it's going to be a Midsummer Night's Dream theme. So I'm super excited. That's something I've never done before, and I'm really excited to just go like absolutely crazy with props and with the decor. All right, so that's corporate. And then finally, private special events. So not, weddings aren't the only events that private people are spending money on. So don't think that that's the only place. And you can book something kind of like this. So this is a bar mitzvah I did a couple of years ago for this 13-year-old boy, Ben, who's a sweetie. His family spent as much on his bar mitzvah or more than some of my clients that year who were getting married. So bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, we've done some beautiful, beautiful 50th anniversary parties, showers. The events industry as a whole has really blown up. So there are opportunities to really do some great, creative, fun, elaborate things that are other than weddings. All right, so here's the important part, and this is where I really want to get into kind of the real talk about what it takes to be successful in this business. I think there are some personality attributes that are really necessary for this to work and for someone to be really good at planning large-scale events. And the first one is organization. And that may go without saying, but not everybody is organized. And when I say organized, I don't want to give anyone the illusion that I am like the most organized person on the planet. If you open the drawers in my kitchen, you would never call me an organized person because it's just a mess. But I work differently. I am a very organized person professionally, and that takes the form of not just neatness or messiness, it's really about having systems. So I've created systems for everything I do so that things are streamlined. I have a consistent way of keeping track of paperwork. I do things in a specific order. I have a way of keeping track of my calendar and my to-do items. And that is what it takes in order to keep someone's event organized and multiple events at the same time. If you do not master organization in your business, it will not work for you because clients are really looking for you to be on top of everything, for you to guide them through the process. And if you are not organized, then they're not going to have any confidence in you. So being an organized person is really important. And again, that's not the same thing as being neat. It's more about being systematic and consistent. And I would argue that in your business, you shouldn't be messy. But I'm just saying, my sock drawer is not indicative of the kind of business I do. I promise. I promise. People would never, ever hire me if they saw my sock drawer. Anyway, okay, so the next one, big one, people skills. And this is super, super important. And this is actually a hard one for me to admit because it was probably my biggest area of challenge. When I started this business, I was so shy, like painfully shy. And the idea of going to a networking event and talking to people about what I did, or every time I went to meet a new client for the first time, I would literally like have heart palpitations. And the truth is, you do have to deal with people. And that is just, that is never going to go away. You're dealing with clients, you're dealing with guests, you're dealing with vendors, you're dealing with client families. It is people, 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 people. I like people. That's why I was in a helping profession. I really do like with people, but I was just I had a little social anxiety and I was just really shy. So I had to make a choice that just because it was hard didn't mean I couldn't do what I loved. I had to really force myself to do something that was challenging because it mattered to me, because I wanted to do this so bad, I was willing to get better at it. So my only solution was to just do it anyway. And that's one of my favorite mantras is like, it makes you uncomfortable, do it anyway. And I know it's easier said than done, but honestly, it is that simple. You just do it. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. There is no way that I would have wanted to teach classes or be on a webinar or do a Facebook Live 10 years ago. No way. I was afraid to put myself out there. It's something that I had to develop. So people skills, you either have to have them or you have to be willing to cultivate those skills, because it is all about a personal connection and being a great person to work with. And you also have to have some level of confidence and a comfort level with being, let's say, assertive. You can't be afraid to speak up in uncomfortable situations because they do happen. Problem solving. I always say that wedding coordinators should just be called problem solvers, because that is so much of what it is we need to do. I mean, sound planning really is about anticipating problems and solving them before they come. And then coordination really is about solving them on the fly. And there is no event day that goes without any hiccups. So you have to be the kind of person that can stay calm and can really focus on finding a solution, because everybody's looking to you to come up with a solution. You're not going to be able to turn around and look at the person behind you and say, what should we do? People are going to be looking to you to come up with the solution. So you have to be an independent thinker and be able to solve problems. This is one of those places where I say parenthood is a great training ground, because I'll tell you what, parenting is unpredictable and you always have to solve problems. Sometimes they're big, long-range problems. Sometimes they're immediate problems. Either way, you have to just click, figure it out, and not dwell in the negative. So leadership, and that speaks to what I was just saying. People are looking for you to be in charge. So you have to be comfortable being a leader. And I think most people who are attracted to event planning are the kind of people that if you were sitting at work and you're in a committee meeting and someone says, well, who wants to be in charge? You tend to be like, well, I'll do it. You may not always want to, but you're okay with being in charge and you're comfortable kind of taking the lead. I am definitely that way. I was always that way. I go on girls' trips and my friends look at me and ask me to assign the rooms. I go out to dinner with my husband. He's always looking for me to tell him what restaurant we're going to. So if you're comfortable leading, then this is a great spot for you. I just tell a little story that kind of demonstrates the flip side of this. I have this coordination assistant who has been with me almost from the very beginning of my business. And she is just a dear, dear person. She is loyal and she is so good on wedding days. She is so good at what she does. And so I talked her into coordinating her own weddings because we were growing and I needed other coordinators, and she knows our business better than anybody else on my staff. And so I convinced her to coordinate weddings, and she did 3 of them and she did a really good job and people were really happy. And she and I were having dinner one night and I was talking to her about, you know, what she wanted in the coming year and if she wanted more bookings. And there was something a little off about her. So I just kind of probed a little deeper and said, you know, like, I'm just getting the sense that maybe you're not into it. And ultimately what she said is, you know, I think I like being told what to do. I like being part of a team, but it's so much pressure to be the leader. It's just not me. I've never been that person, and I'd rather just be on the team. And so we decided at that point that coordinating for her does not light her up. She does not want to be a leader. And so that's okay. If that's not for you, that's okay. But then you probably don't want to be a wedding planner and coordinator, because everybody's going to look to you to lead, and you have to be comfortable in that role. And then finally, education, training, and experience. And this is where I'm going to dwell a little while, because this is what I do and this is the kick that I'm on. But I'm definitely very into education and the importance of that. And the reason I am is, you know, I use this analogy. It's kind of crude, but would you have a doctor operate on you if he has no education? If you have, if you get on a bus and the bus driver has had no training, you don't want to be on that bus. Just because you can be a wedding planner, and believe me, you can be an event planner. You can go to the county clerk right now. You can establish your business. You can get some business cards. People can pay you money to do a job. But if you do not have the education and the training to do it, then that doesn't mean you should be doing it. You can't skip that step. And when I was talking earlier about elevating the reputation of planners as a whole, one of the things that we come up against is that we come to find out that there are people who want to plan events and don't have experience, but they just kind of try it and do it on the fly without education and training. And it's not a great experience for those fellow vendors or for those clients. And so then it does the opposite effect. People say, oh, well, we had a wedding planner and she was useless, or we had a wedding planner and everything was a disaster. That's not what we want. So I think it's really important, if you make a commitment to do this job, to learn how to do it. And that is a challenge, as I said before, because there's not a lot of opportunities out there to really get trained. And there's a difference between education and training. There's kind of knowing, and then there's watching someone do it and figuring out the way to do it, being taught how to do something. So you can't skip the step of being educated, getting trained, and getting a little bit of experience under your belt. So let's talk a little bit about education and training. Oops, one of my bullet points is early. Oh well, we'll ignore that for right now. All right, so self-study. So the first opportunity of education and training is to just go out and get as much information as you can. You can use the internet like crazy. Go start reading blogs and event and wedding publications. Start, following wedding vendors. Start learning who's in your area. Start learning what the current wedding trends. Start learning what the market is in your area for wedding planners. What do people typically charge? Where are people getting married? You can learn so much just on your own. So read books, look online, do as much as you can to become a student of the profession that you want to be in. Shadowing and internships. This is really a great opportunity, is to actually, like I said, see someone doing the work that you want to do. And shadowing and internships doesn't just have to be in wedding planning particularly. It doesn't have to be with a wedding planner or an event planner. It could be with a catering company. It could be with a hotel. It could be with a venue. It could be with a floral designer. Wherever your area of interest is, any shadowing or internship that you get in that arena is going to give you more access and information to about the profession that you want to be in. You're going to meet people in the industry. You're going to learn from that person that's been in the industry, and that is invaluable. If you're looking for shadowing and internship opportunities, you're not going to really find a whole lot of them listed out there. So you're going to have to, as you are self-studying and researching, reach out to the companies that you're interested in learning more about. Make contact with them. Tell them that you're interested in getting started and you just want to learn a little bit about what they do. Not everybody is going to respond. I have people tell me all the time when they reach out to me and ask me for shadowing or internship that they've reached out to lots of people and I'm one of the only people that will reply, but I think it's rude not to reply. So I always reply. I think if someone's going to put themselves out there and ask for a learning opportunity, I'm going to at least respond whether or not I have one. And I don't always have one. It's not easy for me. I will say, like, when people ask to shadow me, there's no such thing. I don't let people shadow because it never looks good for someone to just be standing around. So if you're shadowing, you're working. We're going to give you something to do. So that you have, and I will put you on an event where we need you. We tend to not like to have a lot of people just standing around. It's hard to explain that to clients. But internships, we always have internships, and sometimes it's students and sometimes it's people who just want to learn and they want to intern for a season and see what it's like and see if it works for them. So that's really huge, and you're going to have to seek out those opportunities. Industry employment. So if you don't have the opportunity to do something that's unpaid, like shadowing or an internship, then get employed in the industry. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean getting a job as a wedding planner. Maybe it's working in a hotel, doing the banquet sales and booking that venue. Maybe it's working for a florist, doing deliveries or pickups on the weekends. So find someone in the industry that's hiring. When you start talking to people, you might find opportunities that are going to help you kind of be that first step in while you're getting trained in actual event planning. So look for employment in the industry, even if it's not exactly event planning. If you start making contacts and something opens up, you may have your in to actually get a job planning events. Industry volunteer work. So if you are in a different job that's not in the industry right now and you just want to stay there because it's comfortable, and I get it because I did it, you can still be working towards your craft, and you can volunteer in ways that will give you experience. So join a nonprofit board or an organization that does regular fundraisers and start planning their fundraisers. Yes, it's a little bit of sweat equity in doing that, but you'll get a lot of exposure, you'll meet a lot of people, and again, you have that kind of in the industry. So if an opportunity does open up, you're there, you hear about it, you know about it, and now someone has a little bit more information about you because they've seen you work. They know your work ethic, they know what you're all about, they know that you're a nice person, they want to work with you. So go out and look for an opportunity. Join the junior league, join any sort of nonprofit board. They're always looking for people to help them out. I was on the board for years for a company that does cleaning services for cancer patients. And I donated my time, really, because I cared about the cause, to do their fundraisers. And it was fun. I got to do what I love to do, and I got to give back. So there's definitely people out there who need your help. So go help them and practice the craft of event planning. Mentorships and coaching. So this tends to be a little bit more of an investment in money. It is what I did because I got hired to do a wedding and I needed to learn what I was doing best. I knew how to do events, so I wasn't completely fish out of water, but when it came to weddings, I really needed some specialized training. So I did touch base with a planner outside of my area. I went to a weekend-long training. It wasn't cheap, but it was so worth it. I got so much incredible information, and the best part is I made a relationship with this planner who did really incredible work. And she gave me the opportunity to work with her on a couple of events. When I was structuring my office years later, I went to see her and really picked her brain on how to pay my staff and structure my office and my business time. She really helped mentor me. That was invaluable to me. It was a great investment. I don't need her help anymore. And I'm happy to say that instead of going to this mentor, I am now mentoring other people. But it's something that if you really feel like you want that one-on-one attention for someone who's going to help guide you and kind of handhold you through the process of starting, then look for a coach or a mentor. And then finally, take an event or wedding planning course. And they are out there. And I know that because I've researched them in order to create my own. And I wanted to create one that was different than what everybody else was doing. But there are lots of options out there. Just make sure you research it carefully and you don't overextend yourself for the learning opportunity. There are some training programs out there that are really, really expensive, and they require a lot of money and a lot of time, and a lot of them are not, they're even like a self-study kind of, you just read a book. So I would say if you're going to do an event or wedding planning course, you want it to be with a professional that you are aware is working in the industry, you are clear on what their background is, and that you have some way of knowing that they're actually going to teach you something. So I will just tell you that, well, I'll tell you in a minute about the course that I created, but I've seen a lot of crazy stuff when I did research on courses, but you definitely need to get trained. Just got to find the right opportunity. So I'm going to leave you with what you can do today. So obviously in joining this webinar or watching it on the recording, you are kind of taking that first step of exploring whether or not this is the profession that is a good fit for you. I'm going to suggest that you take it a step further. So the first thing that I want you to do, this is your homework, is to get clear. I want you to spend a little bit of time doing some self-analysis. So I'm going to ask you to get out a piece of paper and start writing some things down. And it's really just a matter of getting quiet and figuring out what it is that you really want, why you want it, and who you really are, who you bring to the table. So first I want you to write down your why. And this is, why are you here? Why are you interested in this? What about wedding and event planning resonates with you? Write that down. What's your why? For me, my why was I wanted a creative outlet for my big ideas. And I wanted the flexibility of working every day on something I cared about. I wanted to get up in the morning, figure out what was important to me, and work on that. That could be the laundry and then a client meeting. That could be taking my kids' folder to school and then, doing a webinar for people. I wanted to work on my own terms. That was my why. So you have to really take a look at why is it that you want to do this, because that's going to be important. And I talk a lot about this in my course in the getting started part, about what is your why and why is that important to the business that you create. So the next thing in terms of the business you create, I want you to consider your what. And this is more like, what is it that you want? What do you want to do? Do you want to do weddings? Do you want to do corporate events? Do you want to be full-time? Do you want to be part-time? Do you want to be world famous event planner? Or do you just want vacation money? What is it that you really want to create? What kind of work do you want to do? And then I really want you to think about who you are, because so much of that is what you're going to create. You have to be authentic to who you are, and you need to know who that is. So these are the questions I want you to answer. What do you care about? What is important to you? And that could be in terms of event planning, like you care about things being beautiful, or you care about taking care of clients, or it could be, I care about being home for dinner every night with my kids. What is it you care about? What are your strengths and weaknesses? So I talked about the personality characteristics that it takes to be successful. Which of these are you really good at? Which are you strong in? And what are the ones that you're weaker in and you feel like you need help with? That will help guide you to how you close that gap between where you are now and where you want to be as a successful professional. What resources do you have? And I don't just mean money. It could be money. Maybe you have a pile of money to start a business. I didn't, but maybe you do. That could be a resource that you have. When I say resources, I mean, what things do you have in place now that would help you get started? So for me, I would say my husband was a great resource for me. He works a 9-to-5 job. So I have the flexibility and have had the flexibility to work nights and weekends because he can be home and taking care of the kids and doing the Mr. Mom stuff when I'm not around. So that was a great resource for me. Not everybody has that, and it's important to know that. If you don't have someone to take over on nights and weekends, then it's going to change your availability to work. Do you have a flexible day job? Do you, what resources are there? What do you have? Do you have a home office already that you could, outfit like I do? What do you have that you can use right now? What kind of experience? What kind of knowledge? What do you have? And then what are your limitations? What are the things that are holding you back? Is it money? Is it childcare? Is it what's holding you back? Write those things down, because those are the things that you need to address and come up with solutions for. Because remember, you're a problem solver. So this is what I want you to do. Get clear. Why, what, who. Then I want you to get educated. So we talked about that. Do your market research. Become a student of the industry. Read things. Follow vendors. Start learning about the industry that you want to be in. There's tons and tons of information. Set aside an hour a day, an hour and a half a day, and just start learning. There's so much out there, and you will be amazed at what you can learn in a very short period of time. And then, of course, get trained. So I promised I was going to talk a little bit about my training because it is something that I'm really passionate about, and it is something I want to offer to people who are really interested in getting started and actually getting trained in how to do this work. So I want to talk a little bit about basic training. And the reason why I'm mentioning it in particular right now is that we actually just opened registration for basic training for wedding planners through the community college. It opens today because class starts on February 5th. So like I said, I started partnering with colleges to offer this in their catalogs because number one, they had students requesting this kind of training, just like they were coming to me saying, I don't know where to get trained. And the reason why I wanted to do it is because I had students taking this course online, and it's all the basic training for wedding planners online through my website, weddingplannerclasses.com, is really flexible. So anyone can go on. You could go on tonight and take a class, and you can take them one module at a time. You can take all of them, and that speaks to kind of that research I did where everything was wanting a large sum of money up front. And I'm thinking, who knows if they really want to do this? Maybe they want to take a couple classes and not invest a whole lot of money and just see what they think rather than committing up front. That's why I did it that way. So if you go online, you can have that flexibility to just try out a class, see how it goes. But the one thing I was missing in doing it that way is I didn't have the opportunity to interact with my students as much as I would like, and they didn't have an opportunity to support one another in their learning. So I decided to do it through the college, and it is a 13-week online course, and it is an instructor monitored class. So even though a lot of the lectures are video and you can watch them and listen to them anytime in the week that you have a chance, which is, I think, important for everybody because most people have very, very busy lives. Everybody starts, all the students start the same day, they end the same day. Everybody's on the same module, and there are opportunities for everybody to interact with each other. So it's a 13-week online course. There are 11 modules, and I won't get into every single one, but I will say we focus on getting started. So that's the basics of starting a business. We talk about design and the basics of design. And then of course, planning and coordination. Those are all those skills that you need to know in order to feel confident doing this work. That's creating budgets, making a timeline, actually coordinating a wedding day. We get into the nitty-gritty of exactly how to do it. Registration starts today. It goes through February 1st. And class starts on the 5th and ends on May 10th. And there are 10 seats available. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to give anyone who registered for this course, whether you were here live or you're watching the recording, either way, you are registered. And so for anyone who is registered, I wanted to give a couple of incentives so that we can fill up the class quickly. The important thing for me is that I get a full class of people who are really interested in doing this work because we really do create a community of supporting one another through our learning. So I really want the right people who are in this industry, really, really interested in getting started to join this class. So the first 5 people that register, that are registered from this webinar, will get a free group coaching session. So that will happen after basic training. We'll all get together and we will talk specifically about your individual goals and have some discussion around how you can achieve those. And I will coach you all through your next steps. And the first 2 people that register out of this webinar will get 2 free individual coaching sessions. So that's a session when we finish basic training, and then there will be a follow-up a few months after that to just kind of check and see how you're doing on your getting started plan. So the link to registration will come out with the recording of this webinar. It's basically paid directly to the college. The tuition is $595. It's for the whole course, includes everything that you get in it. It's paid directly to the college. And in 13, 14 weeks, you are going to have, you know, a tremendous amount of knowledge that you didn't have before. And I actually invited one of our students. She's on the call, Claire. She actually just finished basic training in the fall. So I'm going to unmute Claire. Hey, Claire, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to be on camera or no?
It's up to you.
It's up to you.
Sure.
Okay. All right. And I'm going to ask to start video so everybody can see your face. So there's Claire. So Claire just finished basic training in the fall. So I thought it might be helpful for her to be on this webinar and talk a little bit about her experience with taking the course, because for me it's always important to know people have done it before and it's a good experience. So Claire, you want to talk a little bit about what made you decide to enroll initially?
Sure. I knew, like always, that I wanted to be either event planner or wedding planner. I just didn't know how to do it, didn't know where to begin, like how do I start my own business, make a name for myself. So after taking the course, I really can truly say I honestly know all the steps it takes to become a wedding planner and have my own business. I think it's mostly just not knowing where to begin. And when I saw basic training, I'm like, okay, that's where I have to start.
Awesome. What was it like? Can you talk a little bit about what it's like in terms of just like the learning experience?
Basic training pretty much covered all the bases, just for starting your own business to actually coordinating the wedding day for the couple. It was a lot of information in a short period of time, but the countless templates and the exercises and assignments and all the feedback from that are so beneficial, and I can take that with me as far as I go. So it was a lot in a short period of time, but it's so worth it. Like,
what did you feel like was the most helpful to you in terms of the part of the course that you found most beneficial?
I think when you pointed us in the direction of where to find our resources, because I feel like when you type in like random questions like how do I become a wedding planner in Google, it just gives you like such a wide range, and you're
Right.
like, I don't know if I can access it that way or this way, and it's so broad. But when you explained it to us, you said exactly where to go and all that. So that was just so helpful. And I'm like, oh wow, like I can really relate, like her hesitations here or maybe not so much there. And it's just very relatable, and it feels like so personal, and you just learn so much more that way.
Oh, good. Well, definitely my goal is to cut everybody's learning time a little bit. And so hopefully, you know, by giving you those resources directly, I was able to fast track and save you a lot of research time, because there is a lot of information out there, and sometimes it's difficult to weed through all of it and know what's valuable for you. So thank you. All right, so I'm going to unmute Sharon. Sharon, do you have any questions for us? Either one of us?
I don't, but this has been awesome. A lot of information, and I'm sitting here debating if I want to go ahead and register for this.
Well, good. I'm glad. Do you have any questions about the course that Claire can answer for you?
How intense? I've worked full time as a nurse practitioner, but I love event planning on the side, and I do a lot of reunions and birthdays and things like that now, baby showers for a lot of family and close friends, but it's kind of getting a little old doing everything free.
Yes.
And I want to venture out and do, have more hands-on with it.
Right.
But working full time, I'm just wondering, you said something about assignments. Is that something that I can still keep up with the family and full-time job?
Definitely. I work 9 to 5, and also I'll work for a florist, and she's also like does day of coordination. So in the summertime, like I would get, so exhausted and all that. And of course my social life and all that. So it really wasn't too much. I would just take like few hours on the weekends, maybe like an hour or two at night, but it wasn't like overbearing, like, oh, I can't do this anymore, it's not worth it. It was totally worth it and very manageable with a full-time job.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, and one thing I want to mention too, Sharon, is I did mention that all of this training is available through the website. So if doing it through the college seems like it's too condensed in a short period of time, that's one of the reasons why I still offer it online. So you can take one class at a time and you don't have that same timed release of the modules. So you have a little more flexibility. And the other thing I'll tell you about the college course, because I really enjoy teaching it that way, just because I get to know you guys better, is that my goal is for you guys to get trained. I'm not there to make your life difficult. I want you to learn the material. So I did have students that a couple times would reach out to me and say, I had a crazy week and I didn't get this done. It is really okay. As long as you are, you know, keeping up, I will support you however you need to support. There's not an extension that I don't grant, because this is not about getting a degree and you getting a grade. This is about you really learning the skills. The assignments are meant for you to have that comfort with the skills by practicing in a totally non-risk way, because if you make a mistake on a timeline in an assignment, it's not for a real couple where the stakes are kind of high. It's for me, and I'm going to write, hey, you may want to give yourself some more buffer time here. I'm going to give you the kind of feedback that you'll be able to perfect, so that when you are doing it for a client, you don't have to worry about, I don't really remember how to do this, because you actually got the practice doing it. So even if you were, Sharon, to fall behind, and it sounds like you have a very busy life, and I totally get that, because my life is absolutely crazy. All I ask is for students to reach out to me, let me know what's going on with them, and you have the time you need to catch up. And all of the lectures are via video that you can watch anytime you want. So, and that was important to me. So if you are free more, I mean, if you're a nurse practitioner, do you work hospital hours?
I do 8 to 5.
Yeah, okay. So like some people might have more time in the evening. Some people might have more time on the weekends. I had another student who kind of worked erratic hours, so she did her lessons during the day. So, you know, it's really just a matter of what works for you for the lectures. And then there's just a couple of due dates for the quiz and the assignments. And not every module has an assignment, just the ones where I think it's beneficial to practice the skill. It's not about a volume of work. I just want you to kind of learn. And all of the tools and templates that come with it are yours to keep. And even like Claire, were you the one where the course got turned off and you hadn't downloaded everything?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
like, no.
So Claire didn't get a couple of the downloads, because once the semester's over, the college kind of locks everybody out. So I just sent them to her via email. So she had all of the templates. So you'll have those forever.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about the profession? Are you, Sharon, do you want to branch out and do weddings?
I would love to.
Yeah.
My daughter's actually getting married September the 28th, and she's dependent on me.
Go.
I coordinated my own and did all the decoration, everything from beginning to end for my own 4 years ago.
Yep.
She wants to do the same thing at the same location, just different things.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, that's a great way to start getting to know wedding vendors in your area.
True.
You'll already be interfacing with them. And I will tell you, North Carolina is a growing market. It is really growing. So there's an opportunity there, especially, I know where you are in Rocky Mount. You're not in one of the major metropolitan areas, but it's kind of like bleeding out from there. I went to school at East Carolina University. So you did?
I did.
Oh my God, that's so funny. So that's where I went to school, and I used to live in Fayetteville. So I know the area pretty well. It's definitely growing. So there's some good opportunity there to really kind of grab some of that market, especially in the smaller outskirt areas.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, any other questions you have for us before we sign off?
No, I don't. Thank you. It's been
All right,
awesome.
awesome. You're very welcome. If you have any other questions for me, feel free to shoot me an email. And again, I'm going to do a live Q&A next week, specifically on the training. So just check out our Facebook page, Wedding Planner Classes, and